Hi, welcome to the Budapest Speed Shop, reporting from Kentucky. Today we're gonna work on a 240D. I got this little car from an ex-coworker of mine. I really liked the thing, but it was making all kind of clanking noises. It smokes like hell, so we're gonna try to get to the end of it. I think there are three problems with the car, possible three problems. One is there's nobody adjusted the valve lash on it since I got it, so I think I need to go through that for sure. Then I'm gonna change the injector nozzles, and I got some new tips from Mercedes source, and I got also a tool where I can adjust it and see how they spray. So that's a really huge thing. So we're gonna try to use that tool I got from them, and if none of them fixes it, then I'm gonna have to send the fuel pump out for a rebuild. So, but I think these two things may improve it, or actually might be totally fixing the thing. So let's go and find the car. So here's the 107 I have. I guess I gotta move that, and then we're gonna lower the lift and get to the 240D. First thing we're gonna do is take off the valve cover. In order to do that, we're gonna have to take some slight accessories off, and it should be really easy to get to. In Hungary, my grandpa used to fix X-ray machines in children's hospitals. That time it was like early 60s. The machines were very new. Technology was very new. So he said if they dropped a nut in that huge machine, they're gonna have to look for it until they found it. So I did just like that, because that little washer could do a lot of damage. But here it is. So I found it. So I can keep on trucking now. So here's this valve cover, and on the top of the lid there's a label there, and really hard to see, but it looks to me that over a certain temperature it should be 0.15 millimeter on the intake and 0.35 millimeter on the exhaust, and below it would be the 0.10 millimeter and 0.30 millimeter. Also it's showing me some 24 degrees. I don't know what that is. So anyhow, this is what we're gonna do. This is I'm gonna put it to 0.15 and 0.35 on the intake and the exhaust respectively. If it would be a manual car, I could put it into gear and I could push the car to make the engine move, but this is automatic, so I'm gonna have to find that huge bolt at the end of the crankshaft. It's right there in the middle of that pulley, and this is a really big knot. I found the 27 millimeter socket will go on. So I have one of these ratcheting tools which I'm gonna use to put it on and turn it. The problem is that if I'm underneath and turn it, I don't see what's happening overhead, and I really need to see that. So I'm gonna have to dispatch one of my kids to turn this bolt while I'm looking at what's happening up in the engine. But until then, we can remove the injectors and work on those. I did a little digging about this sticker here, so I was able to find out this is what's written on this sticker. So if your engine is cold, the intake should be 0.004, the exhaust 0.012 in inches. And if you're doing a warm engine, which they also recommend, but I don't have that option right now, Then they say 0.006 and the exhaust 0.014. So that's what I'm gonna do. This is for the 616 and 615 engines. If your engine has a turbocharger, there are different values. Please look it up on your own. This is, again, it's just a entertainment video, not an instructional video. So please do your own research, and just showing you what I'm doing here in the garage, having fun with this. In order to remove the injectors, first what I'm gonna do is take these little bolts off and take these little holders off, which securing these pipes. And also there's one more and one more. I disconnected this also, so I can put the whole throttle linkage on the side. And then once I've done those, I can individually remove these pipes. And of course there's gonna be a little leakage of fuel, but who cares? And then after that, I'm gonna cut these little pipes, little hoses, because I have no other option. You can't really pull that off once you put it on. It's a one-way on, never gonna come off thing. But I have more hoses anyway. Since this is a Mercedes, they didn't leave anything to chance. So these holders, when they come off, these pipe holders, they actually have a knot on the other side. So you're gonna need to have some sort of 2 wrenches to get these off, these through bolts, but holding these pipes together. So to remove the injector nozzles, I got this special tool here, and you just basically put this on it and then release it with this ratchet. So that's the proper way of removing these things, because it's really hard to get to those ones down there. So if you want to release those, this is the only way to, well, not the only way, but this is the most efficient way to get to it. In order to be able to put the socket on this injector nozzle, I had to take off the remains of that rubber hose. So I cut a little wedge in it and then just pull it off with a plier. And then I use this 1 1/16 inch socket to go on the outside this machine, because I need it for something else, but it doesn't matter. So that fit right over it, that lower knot, and then I was able to get it loose, and now I can just by hand I can get it out. So now that I unscrewed it, we got it out, and there it is. This is what we need to work on. Now that we got this fuel injector out, let's open up what I got from Mercedes Source. It says mercedessource.com. You guys can find all kind of instructional videos. He has a YouTube channel, and you can buy all kind of really good stuff from him. So let's see what's in the box and try to make sense out of it. This is super exciting. I got 2 chewing gums from him. One is actually a little bit leaky, but I don't know how did he know that I got 2 kiddos. But I think he's certainly a believer of rubber gloves. I'm sure I'm gonna use those. And then I got all kind of other things. Here's this unit, looks like a little hydraulic jack modified. So yeah, here's the instruction manual. So I'm gonna take it into the man cave and start reading. Well, after reading that very thorough manual, what I received with this equipment, I need to do some preparations here, because this place is not adequate. So this is not acceptable to have dirt on the table like this. So I'm gonna do something to create a lot cleaner environment. Plus I need to remove the rest of the fuel injectors, because I need to make sure that they all doing the same thing. So that's what's coming up next. The other thing he was strongly recommending is to mount permanently that hydraulic jack to some surface. So I just put 2 screws through and I mounted to the table there to make sure it will not move at all. He said, do not try to do this, what you see right here, with the whole thing up in your hand, or the whole thing is loose, because you're not going to be able to do it right, and you're just going to break something. These instruction manuals are very thorough and very nicely done, so I'm very impressed with all of them. I did buy a few things from Mercedes Source in the past, and everything what came from him was ingenious. They were high quality and well done tools. So I'm really impressed with all the things I got from him. I highly recommend him for you guys if you own a Mercedes like that. Well, I screwed everything together. Hopefully I didn't screw it up. And now I'm gonna just try to pump up the fluid. The fluid actually is a mixture of diesel fuel and some ATF. And I actually had to filter it and make sure it's all clean. So now I'm sucking it up with this hydraulic jack looking device and trying to fill up all the cavities and then see if it leaks or has any kind of
problem, so I'm just gonna pump it until the dials start moving. And then it looks like there it is. It's just arrived, so it's actually start going, but it's got a lot of air in it, of course, because the whole system was empty. So it says just pull it a little bit and then small little pieces on it. So here's the second injector, trying to pump it up and then see what kind of spray pattern will it make. So you got to look at it, what the spray pattern is, that at what psi will it releases, and will there any leaks. Then of course have to do a leak down check to make sure it doesn't leaks in. So look, you can see like you're moving small movements on this arm, and then just see how it actually sprays. Because the way it works, the fuel pump develops this high pressure, and then this basically is a check valve, and it releases when it's actually reaching that pressure. Yeah, this thing sprays all over the place. I don't really like it at all. So these injectors are practically brand new. I barely use them at all. I bought them new from Bosch. Apparently Bosch is making their fuel injectors in India, and they're not worth a damn. So the problem is with the nozzle. The nozzles are kind of bad quality. I had to find a piece of wood or something to put underneath that jar. So the only thing I found was a busted 8-track tape. So that will serve really well. So once I have this jar positioned, then I just put the 8-track tape underneath, and it's exactly the right size. So I can try to pump it up and see how this one will behave. Now we almost at the pressure. It's supposed to open around 1500 or 1600 psi. And then it doesn't really matter where in that range, as long as all 4 of them opens up at the same time. So that's what we need to accomplish once we putting them back together. We need to balance them between the 4 cylinders so they all open up at the same time and pushing out the same amount of fuel. That's what's going to make this engine run sort of smooth. I mean, the diesel engine never going to run smooth, but yeah, so sort of smooth, I would say. But this one looks fine.
I've done 3 of these already, so I'm gonna walk you through the number 4 cylinder, which was really bad. So see, first we're gonna have to unscrew it or loosen up this big housing, and then we can continue disassembling it here.
Mercedes sources manual was calling for 2 aluminum L shape in the vise, so I had to cut some of that, and now it's in there, so it will not damage the fuel injector housing while I'm kind of loosening it up. It wasn't all that too tight, but it actually needs that really big arm to properly get it off or start it.
First, we're gonna just simply unscrew it, screw it apart, and then we can see what's inside. Just want to make sure that nothing falls out. So going very close to it, so you can see there is the spring, and then down here there is the rest of the injector nozzle, so we can get it out. There is one of these little lentil looking washers. One side is flat, the other side is round, and then we got one of these units and this one, and this one is kind of stuck and it's barely moving, so most likely this is why it was bad. This is an original Bosch unit, but nonetheless I'm gonna save it. We'll see if it's gonna be good for anything. And then I'm just gonna clean this part out. If it would be used, because I just put these on like 500 miles ago, if it would be really used, I would really clean them out, but it's practically new. I didn't really have to do much with it. It's perfectly clean. So now we got this nice super duper nozzle from Mercedes Source. I really like that company. They always have the best stuff for these cars. And then I'm gonna clean out the outside of it. I'm gonna very carefully pull this out and clean that off as well, and then put it back in, and then we're gonna just simply reassemble it. Now this part is very fragile. In the end, we try not to touch anything with it, not to touch it with a wrench, or not to drop it, not to put it down on it. It's gotta be very carefully dealt with. And then here's that round piece. The round piece goes down first. Well, if it ever goes on. And then we can put the spring on the middle and we can screw it back in. And now we just gotta go very carefully, take it over to the vise and torque it down. And then we can test it out. It looks like this one opens at 1700 also, just like the other ones. You got a nice pattern, nice atomization. I think we're good to go. I think we're done with the injector nozzles here. Now we're gonna do a leak down check. So we're gonna pump it up just about there, and we're gonna wait, and we're gonna say how much it's gonna drop. It's very slowly dropping, so yeah, it's really nice. That's a really good dropping rate. So the stipulation is that it's not supposed to drop 25% of the recommended opening pressure in 5 seconds. So this one is still up there. It's really nice. Now we shouldn't forget that we have high pressure in this pipe, so we need to release the pressure before we remove the injector. So just like on a hydraulic jack, we're gonna release the pressure, and then now I'm gonna just leave this open, that little valve, and now we can remove the injector nozzle. Now that we got all 4 of them done, now we got actual holes on the top of the combustion chamber, so we're gonna be able to turn the engine around a lot easier. So now is the time to set up the valve clearance or the valve lashes. As you can see it on the valve cover, it says the ignition is 1342, just like on a regular gas-powered car. So that will help us determine which cylinder to adjust. Just to make it a little bit easier to understand, I draw a part which is non-existing on this car. This is the part of an ignition unit for a gas-powered vehicle. So just so you understand what I'm thinking, I draw you one of these circles. There is the rotor, and now it's pointing to the number 1 cylinder. Then it's going to point to the number 3 cylinder, then a number 4, number 2. It goes this way. So it's 1, 3, 4, 2. Just like over here. 1, 3, 4, 2. So when it's supposed to point at 1, the number 4 cylinders valves, they actually supposed to just turn over. So one was down and they come, and then there will be a time when when they actually exchange. There will be a changeover time, and that's what I'm looking at. When they actually gonna be at the changeover time, then I stop, and then I can adjust the number 1 cylinder. So let's say then I adjust the number 3 cylinder, then the number 2 cylinder, I will look at that changeover point. So it's gonna come, and suddenly it's gonna go like, oh, there it is. If it went over, then it went too far. It has to be exactly where they pass each other. And then I adjust that. So this is why I showed you this, so I can show you that how am I gonna determine at one position of the camshaft will I adjust the valve lashes. I have to admit I cheated a little bit because my son was here and we did it already. We lifted up the car, and then therefore my son was able to turn the crankshaft. I would not recommend to turn this whole thing using this big bolt here, because that's not the proper way to do. I would have the nice big socket, the same socket what goes on the fuel injectors. That will go on the middle of the crankshaft, and then you can turn the crankshaft with that. And when you turn it, you always turn it clockwise. It always goes that way. If you see the belt, sorry, not belt, the chain is pretty flat on this side, and there's a other side which come back in a little bit of curvature, and that's where you tighten the slack. So the straight part is the one which pulls, so the whole thing goes this way and it goes down that way. So when we start turning it, when let's say we want to adjust the number 1, actually the number 2, that number 2 is left, so that's what we're going to do. So then I was looking at the number 3 that they're actually changing over. So you can see these two valves actually go up and down, and when they were passing each other, that's when this one is at the right position, and now we can actually adjust the number 2 cylinder. We did that so when we want to adjust the number 1, and we were looking at the number 4 to see them when they pass over each other, like one goes down, one coming up, and when they do this, and then they, oh, there it is. So if you pass it, no problem. Just you got to go backwards a little bit more and then try it again until they, well, right exactly there. And then you can adjust the number 1 and so on. So when we adjusted the number 4, we're looking at the passover on the number 1 cylinder. There's several ways to find these things. There are all kind of charts to see which one you can adjust, because of course there are some of these sticking away, and then you can just do whatever way you want it, but this is the way I usually do it, and it works for me. I have these marvelous German wrenches for adjusting the valve lash. So it's like hazard wrenches from West Germany. So with this one, you can actually hold the top of the valve basket from moving. Unfortunately, I didn't have to do that. So the top of it looks like this, got little 6 angles, and this fits right on top of it, so you can hold it from moving away. So, but I haven't had to do that yet, so I can just very easily move those 2 nuts. One is a bolt, the other one is a nut. So the idea is that with one of these wrenches we hold the lock nut, and then the other one we hold the other one, and with 2 hands we can actually loosen it up. There we go. So now the lock nut can go down a little bit, and then now we're going to be able to adjust the top one very nicely to get the proper lash. If I could actually put that on, it's going very easily. So anyhow, that's the idea. Now that we loosened it up, this one happened to be an intake. So for the intake, we're going to do the thinner one, and then we're going to keep moving it in and out until it's actually getting stuck. So right there, now it's kind of hard to move. Now it's moving very hard, and that's where we're gonna have to tie up the bottom one, the lock nut. So it looks like I loosened it up way too much, and now we locked it back in. Now we're gonna try it again. And it's really hard to put it in. It's not even going in, so I'm gonna have to move it just a little bit out. This is like a trial and error game. And let's see now. Nope. It's almost, but not quite. And now let's see, how about now? I just bent this metal. Oh, alrighty then. So now we're gonna check if it goes in. It doesn't go in, so we're gonna loosen up a little bit. First we're gonna loosen up the lock nut, then we're gonna put this feeler gauge between there, the idea is that it has to be like very hardly move on it. It's got to fit tight on it. So now we're going to remember the orientation of the upper branch, and we're going to tighten up the knot and see if we can move it, and it comes right out. Very nice. That's perfect. Now we can go to the exhaust and do exactly the same thing. Before you put away a torque wrench, I always release it. Please release it on yours too, to make sure it's not go bad while you store it. Before I put these crush washers on, I kind of cleaned up the surfaces, and I can see the end of the glow plugs. So I think this would be a good time to test the glow plugs by asking my kid to pull it a little bit and see if they actually glow up or not. And once we tested that, then I can start putting back the injectors. Okay, now that we tested the glow plugs, we're gonna put the crush rings in. The crush rings has to be done properly, so the empty part gonna be to the top, and then the round one goes to the bottom. So if you can try to put that on, it fits there, but on the other way it will not fit. So it has to be just so. So it has to be this way, where the little groove gonna be facing towards you as you put it in. Now we can double check it that all of them look right and they are at the correct orientation, so they're not upside down. And now we can put the injectors on. Yeah, once we put them in, I want to make sure that they go in by hand very easily and go all the way with them. And then when they stop, they stop. Then we're gonna torque them down when we finish it up. Now we're gonna be able to put these back on, just barely, because we want to make sure they will leak out. Put the next one on too, and so on. Now we can put on these little pipe holders. I'm gonna locate them and put them back on. Well, I put on the pipe holders. One bolt broke, I need to source that. And now it's about time to put the return hoses on. So I got a bag of new return hoses which I'm gonna use. Fortunately, I had a roll in stock, so that's what I'm gonna use. It actually came from Pelican parts. I really like them. Here's little Tesla to help. She's a Valpino Italiano, not exactly a shop dog, so to speak. The last one actually has a little plug on it, so you gotta be careful with it. I left a little bit excess on it, so if you have to cut it off next time, we'll have space for that. I got all the pipes on and hoses on, so I left a little bit of excess of hoses there, so next time I have to cut them, then I can just reuse these. So next thing I'm gonna do is put the valve cover on and put all the accessories back, like the throttle and other things what I had to take off for this job. So I got all the bolts back on, the valve cover is on, everything is connected, but instead of starting it, I think I'm just gonna let the oil down. I gotta go to work and run the shuttle between Atlanta and Florida for 2 days, so I just gonna have to leave it here. So anyway, I'm gonna lift it up and open up the drain plug and let it drain out. I guess by the time I come back, like around 3 days of time, it will be drained pretty nicely from the oil. But every time you change oil in a diesel Mercedes, don't forget about the fuel pump. The fuel pump has an oil compartment, and they made a really nice red top for it to remind you that it needs to be changed. It's just like another engine. It has an oil compartment at the bottom, and there is a bolt on the side where you can release it. It's really hard to see it from the side, but it's around there. It's a 13mm head bolt what needs to be unscrewed, and then the oil will drain all over your floor. So that needs to be changed as well. I think there might be a tool for it to put it underneath in like a pan, but I don't have that. So it's just gonna go. I'm trying to put a pan under it and try to change that oil as well. There is a really great way of screwing this up. by leaving the socket on the crankshaft. So when you're turning the crankshaft, the big bar, if you leave this socket on and you start the engine will be destroyed. Well, not the engine, but everything around it. All the radiator, all kind of accessories, this will beat everything up. So make sure you remove it if you move the engine with a socket and a big bar. Well, we're under the car now, and here is the bolt, not bolt, that we need to take out to let the oil down, and right next to it there is the oil filter housing what we need to also get out, and then I'm gonna change that too. And I'm looking around, I see some bushings but really desperately need to be changed. So I got the bushings, I got the subframe mount and everything else, but I didn't have the motivation to change it yet. But what I really like to show you is the way you align a car like this, or a 107, which I have down there. Yeah, that's a 280 SL. So the way you align these cars with a subframe is that you need to lift up the car to make sure it's not on its wheels, and then you got to take out this bolt here at the bottom of the steering gearbox. You can see it right there, and then right there, and then you got to put in the Mercedes alignment bolt, which is like I think I have one, and then you can align the steering, and also you can align the wheels. That's the only way to do it right, otherwise it's never going to be exact, and you're always going to have a little bit of left, little bit of right, but you're always gonna have something where you feel it's not right. Found it. Here's the Mercedes bolt. This is what goes into that hole, and you got to, this is what aligns it. So make sure the car is lifted, so you can easily, this bolt actually gonna turn the steering to position, and yeah, make sure the car is lifted so it can do its job. And that's the alignment bolt. This is how you properly move everything to zero at the middle, not with the steering wheel. I went to work. Now it's 5 days past, so it's had plenty of time to leak out. So now we're just gonna put the drain plug back in, tighten it, and then put the filter up as well. I got the original Mahle filter. It came with the little rubber seals and all the other seals it needed, but I just changed those seals on the bottom not too long ago, so I'm not gonna mess with that. But I wanted to show you on the top there is some bends in this thing, so you can bend it. So the way you put it up is you put the whole thing up, and you got to kind of twist it until actually start tightening it up to make sure that these grooves actually sit in the car, so in that housing. Otherwise it's gonna start bending, just like you can see it here. So you gotta be careful with it, not to just start tightening this bolt up, because it's not gonna pull itself in. You got to actually adjust it and make sure it moves until it's not moving anymore and nicely sits, and then you can tighten it up. The other thing is that it has a little holder on it. This little handle goes to the upper part, and you just slide it through the bolt, and then you can find its way to go. And if it's a new seal, you probably better just put a little bit of oil in it all the way around, and it's gonna be easier to get it off. This is where the oil filter housing is going, so I'm gonna clean off the surfaces, but it looks surprisingly clean inside. This also had a bunch of time to leak itself out, so it should be all clean. I really like this straight 30 Rotella. It's available at all the car parts stores, and I put this one on almost all of my classic cars, including the V8 gasoline powered ones, except except Hans. The 107 Mercedes gets a really special oil from Ems Oil. But all the other cars that I have, the old Austin Hillies and all the V8 engines I got, I put this Rotella in it. Not the new ones, so not the F-150 and other stuff, but the F-100, what I have here, I need to really put back together. Got a 352. All these old engines will get this oil, and it works really well. Before I put the filter housing on, I'm gonna lower the car and change the oil in the fuel pump unit, because that will leak all over the place. So I put that pan underneath, hoping that it will catch most of it, but you never can tell. The drain plug for the fuel pump unit, it's in a fairly inaccessible place, but I left the ratchet on so you can see, hopefully, where is that There's a 14 millimeter head what goes on that ratchet, and then I can take out that bolt on the side, and then the oil will come out. And then here's this red lid that needs to be unscrewed, and then this one, and then you can fill it up there until it comes out on that hole. So it's a very odd way of doing it, but gotta be done. All right, I have this funnel here, loosen up the little, took out the little bolt, and first nothing came out when I put the oil in, but now it's coming out, so I can just put the bolt back in once it stops coming out, and then the level would be set. Don't forget there's a little brass washer on the top of this, on this little bolt or plug, and that little washer will most likely fall off as you're taking it off, so be careful with it. So now I'm just gonna wait until it stops leaking. That means the level is set, and then I can reinstall this little plug. Then we're done with this oil change in the fuel injector. I put these crappy Bosch injectors in it just about a year ago, and before that the filters were not really changed too often, so I don't know what kind of junk did it collected. So at that time, when I changed those fuel injectors last time, I changed the filter on it, but I'm thinking now it's collected all the junk, so I think I'm gonna change it again. I have a proper fuel filter for it. It's got two fuel filters. One is a pre-filter, it's down there, it's like a clear filter, that looks pretty clean. But this one I can't see inside, so this is what really counts. I'm gonna change this as well. This is my favorite oil filter removing wrench. I'm gonna use this to take off the old one, and you should only use your hand to put the new one on. You should be just hand tightening it. There's a little pump on the side of the fuel injector, so I started to pump it up. And look what happens here with the return hose. Oops. It leaks a little. So yeah, this hose needs to be changed. Yeah, all my friends are laughing at me when I'm collecting stuff, but I collected this piece in Hungary, and that's a German-made fuel hose. So it looks exactly like the original. So I'm gonna just chop a piece off of this, and then I was gonna be able to replace the old broken one. All right, let's think it through. So I got engine oil in it. I got the oil filter up. I changed the oil in the fuel pump, and I changed the fuel filter. I also pushed a little pump on the side of the fuel pump to get the air out of it. You know, it's ended up accumulating in the top. I changed this hose. The only thing I haven't done is I haven't really tightened up these nuts on the top of the injectors, because I want to be able to have the air come out of it, because since I removed these pipes are empty right now. They're only gonna get full if the fuel injectors start moving and start pushing fuel out. So I think I'm gonna start cranking the engine, and then I'm gonna retight these things. I'm pretty sure it's not gonna start because it's not gonna be able to build up enough pressure because these nuts are loose. But once it starts getting some fuel out, I think that's gonna be the time to tighten them up, and then hopefully after that the engine will start. Before I adjusted the valve lashes, one of the cylinders had no compression when it was cold. And I know that for sure because when it was cranking, it's like like this. You can be able to tell there's one cylinder had no compression in, or not so much. So let's hear what kind of noise does it make right now. I don't want to glow the glow plugs. I just want to crank the engine to have the fuel come up, and I can close those nuts on the top of the fuel injectors. Yeah, I think it had a really good sound, very evenly spaced. So there's some oil came out at the fuel injectors, so I'm just gonna tighten those up, and let's see if it starts. This is incredible. It runs so nicely. I haven't run this nice ever. This is great. Thank you, Mercedes Source. You're awesome. Let's see start from actually from standstill, because before it was making a lot of clanking and a lot of bad noises, so I really want to see how is it reacting now. Yeah, this sounds really nice now. There's no clanking whatsoever. There's not any smoke coming out in the end. It's just great. I love it. It just become a nice car suddenly, a totally different car than what it used to be. Man, I'm super excited. It sounds great. It never sounded like this before. Yeah, if you have a diesel Mercedes, please look up mercedessource.com or look at his YouTube channel, or probably you already know about his YouTube channel. Everything what I bought from this guy is freaking awesome. It's just great. So I'm really happy with this car now. So let's put it back on the rack and see if anything's leaking, and yeah, and then think what's next. We're gonna have plenty of things to do on it anyway, but this is great. Now I'm actually can use the car now. When I was in Denver for a captain upgrade with my buddies, two of my other buddies, we went up to Pikes Peak. So I got the summit pass here since then. So this thing actually went up to that really high hill, and then we were thinking, if it's not gonna go up, we're just gonna roll it back in and let it come down, and then we'll probably hopefully start, and then we just go back to Denver. But this thing was making all kind of noises, but it went up to the summit. I couldn't believe it. So even with 3 cylinders or basically 2.5 cylinders, it did it. So yeah, it's great. Well, nothing really leaking. This was very exciting to me that now this car is actually working really nice. I used it for a long time and it was always ran like crap. So now it actually runs really nice the way a diesel car should. So this really makes me happy. I probably could afford to buy a brand new car, maybe even a Porsche 911, but I just don't really have the need for that. I really like to mess with this kind of stuff, and when it's actually start working, it gives me a lot of happiness.
After talking to my friends in Europe, they were telling me to look at 2 more things on it. One is that see if that little membrane in the fuel pump leaks or not. The way we can do that is with a smoke tester. So I got a friend who has one, so we have it heading to his garage, and we're gonna try to put some smoke inside that fuel pump unit and see if it leaks out or where is it leaking out of. So the other thing, what they were suggesting, to look at the timing chain. The timing chain can expand, and then the timing will go away and going to be off a little bit, and that will adversely affect the output of the engine. But I did check that and it looks just fine. So the only thing I'm kind of worried about is that fuel pump unit. So now we're heading into town and to his little shop, and then we're going to see if you can put that smoke onto that engine. But that engine runs great. It never ran like this before. It was smoking. It was smoking when I let the gas up. It was smoking when I was pushing the gas. It was clanking, and it had all kind of problems with it. But here's this lovely little downtown area in the middle of Kentucky. Heading to my buddy's shop, and then see what we can find in it. So here's this little smoke maker or smoking device, and then I'm removing the little red intake cap or lid from the fuel pump. And there's a hole where you can access, there's the lid, there's a hole where you can access the whole chamber. So we're gonna put the smoker in it. So it looks like it's already smoking. It's actually burning baby oil, believe it or not. So you're gonna put it in there and then see where is it gonna leak. We're looking at the throttle entrance to see if the throttle leaks or not, because the throttle quadrant was separated with that little membrane made out of some sort of leather. And then, well, it's smoking at the housing where the two housing is meeting. That's very odd. Looks like maybe I could tighten those bolts up. I don't know, but it looks like it's smoking exactly where the two casting is meet. Maybe they're bent. That's a very interesting thing. Maybe there's an o-ring in there. I never seen it all apart. If you ever done like something like this before, tell me what you think about that leak, what you see there. See, it's like very visibly leaking right out at the meeting points, but there's nothing coming out at the throttle entrance point where the linkage goes in. Well, thanks, Max. So I guess this summarizes it. So it does leak, but not where I was thinking it will. So let's go home and then try to do something with it.
So thank you for watching, and then please write me if I did something wrong or you have a better way of doing it. I'm always happy to hear some suggestions. I don't know everything. I'm not a car mechanic. And yeah, just look up Mercedes Source. That place is awesome. Thank you for watching. See you guys next time. Bye.